Dr. Parnier has been collecting evidence from individuals like Heather and also started some clinical research into near-death experiences in cardiac arrest patients. This research was designed to try to establish their cause.
Until 1997, there was very little data that had been gathered from objective scientific studies, and one of the things that we wanted to do was to start to really shift the whole study of near-death experiences from theoretical debates into objective science. And therefore we set up the first ever study that was published in cardiac arrest patients. And we looked at things such as a lack of oxygen that had been proposed until that point, drugs that patients may have been given, and also their own personal psychological state and religious views before coming to hospital.
In order to rule out anecdotal and subjective accounts, Dr. Parnier's research was extremely selective. He included only people who had suffered cardiac arrest and had been clinically dead.
The term near death is a very wide term which is very difficult to define, and therefore we decided to study a group of people who've objectively and scientifically reached the point of death. We know from clinical practice that the definition of clinical death is a person who has no heartbeat and no breathing, and also whose brain stops functioning. And looking at what happens to a patient during cardiac arrest is that by definition they have the first two criteria, and that within a few seconds their brain also stops functioning. And therefore we have the closest model to study the dying process.
Cardiac arrest patients were therefore the perfect group to study. Brain expert and neuropsychiatrist Dr. Peter Fenwick teamed up with Dr. Parnier to endeavor to find out what happens to the brain during a near-death experience.
When you have a cardiac arrest, if you monitor brain waves or the electrical activity of the brain, you find that within 8 seconds it's almost absent, and it's absent throughout the brain, so you don't have little pockets of activity. So
the new clinical research into near-death experiences is daring to suggest the impossible, that they are evidence that the mind can live on after the brain has stopped functioning. Dr. Pim van Lommel in Holland and Dr. Sam Parnier and Peter Fenwick in Britain have pioneered this new research.
Till now the concept was that the brain is the producer of consciousness and the producer of memories. And when you study near-death experience, then you have to say, well, we have to reconsider this concept. And perhaps we should consider the brain not as a producer, but as a receiver of consciousness. And that's a kind of revolution.
All three medical doctors kept hearing the same stories and wanted to investigate exactly when during the dying process the near-death experience occurs. Could it be happening when the brain is not functioning, when a person is clinically dead? It's only recently that scientists and medical experts have begun to study such experiences clinically. And it wasn't until the mid-1970s that the phenomenon suddenly became well known. An American doctor, Raymond Moody, published what was to become a best-selling book, Life After Life, collecting the accounts of 150 people who had reported having had one. One of Moody's former students recognized the need to study such cases in a more objective way. Today, the psychiatrist Professor Bruce Grayson is one of the most eminent experts in the field.
At the time we started studying these phenomena, there really was no general consensus about what near-death experiences were. Nobody had heard about them. Certainly the public didn't know anything about near-death experiences, and most scientists, most doctors, had never heard of them either.
Whilst near-death experiences change lives, they've also given some individuals extraordinary experiences that they would never have dreamt of. The most intriguing examples are of blind people becoming sighted for the first time. Vicky Naratuk had been blind from birth.
I've never seen anything, no light, no shadows, no nothing. A lot of people ask if I see black. No, I do not see black. I do not see anything at all. And in my dreams, I don't see any visual impressions. It's just taste, touch, sound, and smell, but no visual impressions of anything.
In her early 20s, Vicky was involved in a serious car accident.
The next thing I recall, I was in Harborview Medical Center and looking down at everything that was happening, and it was frightening because I'm not accustomed to see things visually because I'd never had before, and initially it was pretty scary. And then I finally recognized my wedding ring and my hair, and I thought, is this my body down there? And am I dead or what?
We can't bring her back. It's a costume.
They kept saying, we can't bring her back, we can't bring her back, and they were trying to frantically work on this thing that I discovered was my body, and I felt very detached from it. And sort of, so what? And I was thinking, you know, what are these people getting so upset about? Then I thought, I'm out of here. I can't get these people to listen to me. And as soon as I thought that, I went up through the ceiling as if it were nothing. And it was wonderful to be out there and be free, not worry about bumping into anything. And I knew where I was going. And I heard this sound of wind chimes. It was the most incredible sound that I could describe. It was from the very lowest to the very highest tones. As I was approaching this area, there were trees and there were birds and quite a few people, but they were all like made out of light. And I could see, and it was incredible, really beautiful, and I was overwhelmed by that experience because I couldn't really imagine what light was like. It's still a very emotional thing when I talk about this because there was a point at which I could bring forth any knowledge I wanted to have, and it was like this place was where all knowledge was. And then I was sent back, and then I went back into my body, and it was excruciatingly painful and very heavy, and I remember feeling very sick.
וככה איך שאני צועד לכיוון הים, מגיע לחוף, עומד ככה על החוף, הייתי לבד שם, ממש לבד, ככה ים ענק, ים כחול, התחלתי לשחות ולהתרחק מהחוף, וזה כזה חום שם, שבאותו רגע להיות במים זה משהו לא רגיל, אני שמח וטוב לי, וכל כך נעים, ואיזה חום בחוץ, ככה אני התרחק מהחוף, פתאום אני ככה מרגיש שמשהו אוחז לי ברגל מתחת למים ולוקח אותי לכיוון הקרקע. מה זה, לא הבנתי מה זה, לא חיה, לא כלום. ככה אני מנסה להתנטרל מזה, להשתחרר מזה, לא מצליח. הבנתי שנתפסתי במערבולת ואני רחוק ממש מלמעלה. בדרך כלל אדם מנצל, אני יודע, 10% מהכוחות שלו. והדבר שאדם רוצה לחיות זה 100%. אז התחלתי ממש עם כל הכוחות האחרונים שלי לצאת. הגעתי לאמצע הדרך וראיתי שאין לי כוח. וירדתי לכיוון הקרקע. פתאום ראיתי את עצמי במצב כזה שעזר לי דבר מאוד מבולבל. ראיתי